You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Nathan Einkorn.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. And with me today is special guest Nathan Einkorn out of Colorado. He's been with Vetted VA since the very beginning. He was an early adopter. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. Just like his head, what you get is the bare truth. And we appreciate that about him. He also can grow a mean beard, keeps it going, then he cuts it down, and we all make fun of him, and then he grows it back out. So if you're watching this one, the beard's on point this time. And hopefully it stays that way. So Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all you got to say. But man, this is going to be tough. All right. So Mr. Einkorn, we are excited to talk to you more about, tell us about where you're from, kind of your background. How'd you get into lending? Paint me a picture.
Oh man. So born and raised in San Diego. Worked at various places, but got my first career style job as a general manager, working for 24 Fitness. Eventually became a general manager, and moved to Colorado to snowboard and fly fish and hunt and do all the things that I like to do. And while I was doing that, really kind of no focus, no real direction. A gentleman was working for me strictly for the benefits that 24 Fitness provided, and he was also working at a mortgage company. And got to know him, and probably 6 or 7 weeks after he started working for me, I was a little bit. 24 Fitness in Colorado was not my favorite scene. It was a little bit different than what it was in California and Arizona. So long story short, I went to an interview and started working for a surety financial within like 2 days.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of that's the 2004. So the Wild West of mortgages. Kind of funny story at that company. I actually did not fill out an application, provide ID or a social security card until it was payday. And the payroll department was like, we can't pay you because it was simply come on in here, get on the phone and start doing mortgages for people. And it was, I had the book, right? We flipped pages for rebuttals, and it was just that kind of call center, pre Dodd-Frank mortgage brokerage.
So I kind of consider in my mind, I'm seeing the scene from Boiler Room where you literally walked into a conference room and he like throws his Ferrari keys on the table, like, who wants to drive my Ferrari? And all the things I won't quote in that movie, but literally like go out and hit the phones and just sell. Right.
The reason the interview was set up was because my buddy showed me his paycheck.
Yeah, of course.
And
that's sometimes that's all it takes, man. It's like, you got paid how much to do what?
That was all. It was kind of in the period where 24 Fitness was getting ready to sell. So they were constantly cutting our pay, our bonus structures, our commissions. And it was like we were just making less and less money for doing the same work. So I was already kind of in that looking for something new. And, assured the timing was perfect. I made some really good friends, learned a lot. We pretty much, that shop primarily focused on FHA and VA. And that was like our bread and butter. So that was kind of my entry into it. I immediately, developed a pretty strict focus on VA. At that time, I did not serve myself, but I do come from a family with a pretty strong military background. And so it was just kind of a natural fit for me to begin focusing on the VA loan.
All right, let's dive into that. So you start focusing on the VA loan because that shop understood the VA loan. What was your wake up moment to it? Like, when did you go, wow, this loan is different / I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was your aha moment?
It was pretty instant. I mean, when you're doing the VA, there was a ton, that interest rate environment back in that time, refinances were huge, right? We're coming off of like, the late 90s, early 2000s. VA loan, as much as people complain now, but back at that time, FHA and VA, right, which typically have the lower interest rates of all the loans that are available, were in that most people that were coming to us had 8 and 9% interest rates.
Yep.
And that was the norm. And
Yeah.
coming from a lower middle class background myself, I knew what a mortgage was much, much earlier than most children should probably know, simply because I overheard my parents talking about their struggles to actually make those payments. And the other part of that was my father, who had served in Vietnam, did not utilize his VA loan.
Yep.
He was talked out of it. So at that time, I was able to reach out to them and just be like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they were at like 12% at that time. So
yeah,
it was pretty big. And that's when my eyes really started to open to the fact that there were a ton of eligible veterans and active duty that were being discouraged or not even told about their VA loan benefit. It's something that was glossed over, when they were departing from the military, or had just never even been brought up. So it was kind of crazy when I would be talking to my clients that were veterans or active duty that had used their VA loan, and they didn't even really understand that they were put into a VA loan necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, they were getting the notifications, because even back then, right? And my company was one of those companies. I will say they were not the most scrupulous company, but a lot of us,
sure.
back at that time, most of us didn't know any better. We were just like, oh, we're doing loans for these people. We're doing refinances and we're helping them out. But finding out how many were not, FHA borrowers were coming to us to do with an FHA streamline at that time. And one of the questions we always asked, are you a veteran? Yes, I am. Why did you do a VA? Why did you do an FHA loan? That's what they did.
Right.
And back then there was the internet was, and not that in 2004 the internet was new, but in 2004 I didn't own a laptop. I didn't have a computer at home. My only computer was at work. So, getting information was just not as easy as it is now. So there were a ton of clients that came in on one loan, and then we realized, oh, you're a veteran. You have access to this loan, which has a better interest rate. It's a much easier, streamlined process. I mean, just everything about it was it's just a better loan. So, really started like focusing and concentrating on educating our clients. And of course, I admittedly at that time is a lot of selfish motivation too. Like, hey, we can get a lot more business if we start educating these guys and gals on the fact that, like, hey, you have this benefit, but guess what? Everyone you served with, assuming they honorable discharge and have their COEs and whatnot, but almost everyone that you served with has access to this as well. So
I love that. And I think we've talked about that personally before, but my dad also served in Vietnam, right? He was on the USS Midway, which is down in San Diego, and served on that ship. And I remember finding out after I got the mortgages in 2006, 2007, when I started, I was like, well, Dad, when did you use your VA loan? He's like, I never have. Why would I do that? I never got hurt. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like,
that was the exact answer of my old man. He's like, no, that's for the guys who,
yeah. And he construed that with other benefits, which rightly I understand that, but there was zero education about it. And I remember having that dialogue. And so and he's like, well, and then he goes, well, I'm sure it expired, like the GI Bill. I'm like, no, Dad, it actually has not. And so, the next house he bought, he still didn't want to use it. And so, which is funny, I don't think it's too much to share now. I moved to Texas and they're coming out here and he's building and he's going to use his VA loan to construct their last, the home that they are planning to, they're going to retire into and just live in for the rest of their remaining life. And I'm super excited for him for that. It's not too late to use your VA benefit.
No.
There are ways to, if you're listening to this and your dad or grandfather, or maybe this is you and you're going, no, way too late. I waited too long. No, it is not. There are ways to, even if they come back and say, no, you waited too long, like, call us. There are ways to get around that. It is not true.
I have a 72-year-old client right now. He's using his VA loan benefit for the first time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Those are our dads and we're taking care of them. Like, it's important. They earned it. It's still a good thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah. And it's funny, on this particular transaction, we're running into, uneducated agents that are worried about the VA loan. They're worried about whether or not he's going, this is a 72-year-old who's on a fixed income. He's 100%. He's got a 100% rating. So he's qualifying on his disability income plus his Social Security that he's eligible for. So that's what we're using to qualify him. And he's not out trying to buy a $600,000-$700,000 house. He's looking for a $250,000 to $300,000 property. And here in Colorado, that's going to be typically a fixer-upper. That's going to be a house that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, maybe on some acreage, which the particular house that he's looking at right now, the agent that was listing it actually put in the listing conventional or cash only, because she was not aware, because she just got told. And it's like, I feel like there's a lot of that in our industry, even on the lending side and the real estate side, where you come in and you work for a broker, and whatever that broker tells you is kind of like the gospel truth to a lot of these agents. And she was told by her managing broker that, that house has to go this way. And it's, sometimes it's just that simple phone call, but I got her on the phone and I'm like, let me know what your concerns are. Like, what are you worried about? And there's a metal roof. There is it's well water instead of, and these were her concerns. Like, these were those two things. She said, nope, so it can't go VA. And I'm like, well, I got great news for you. Even if my offer doesn't get accepted and you don't decide to go with my borrower, you can now open this up to any VA borrower out there, because neither one of those two things disqualifies it.
It's like as pros, we're not taught a healthy sense of distrust or just like counter. And so I did the college route, right? So I didn't serve, and in college I was always like, cite your sources. And I think for whatever reason, that was something stuck with me with my education, as I went back and every time somebody, even at work, is like, well, this is the way it is, you're like, can I get your source? Cite your source for me. Like, where did that come from? I would say any professional listening to this, if you're told one thing by another professional, have a healthy source of distrust that they don't know 100% of the truth, and you need to go figure it out and make sure and vet it. Vetted VA, our tagline is trust but verify. Like, I trust you. I'm just going to go verify what you told me, not because I distrust you, but because I trust you and I want us to be better.
And it's not even a matter of like incompetence. It's a matter of sometimes of like, hey, there's the thing called circulars that the VA releases on a regular basis. And if you don't keep up with them, we got a lot of these, like for us, I always try and measure it with the fact of like, okay, my focus is VA loans, right? Like 80% of my business, I work with veterans or active duty. So it's all I really do, right? It's where we spend all of our time. So I always try and give them the benefit of the doubt of like, this particular agent, she's not new. She's been doing it for 6 years. She's never done a VA loan. Right. And there's a lot, there's so many of them out there that it's like one of those things I always, when talking to other brokers, it's like, write down all those silly questions that we get, because they're silly to us because we deal with it all the time, but they're not to the consumers. They're not to the agents. They're not to even other brokers. I've worked with other lenders that have been in our business for 7-8 years and have never done a VA loan. Blows me away that that's even possible, but it is.
Well, and it also comes from where, you started in San Diego? No, I'm sorry. You started in Colorado.
Started in Colorado.
You started in Colorado.
We've got a huge military community here, right? We've got
and bases, that's just it.
We've got.
I started in Salem, Oregon, and it was really hard to find. You'd have some National Guard or some Oregon Reserve and Guard, and it was like you wouldn't find that many VAs eligible. So some people start in areas where it's not as common, or frankly, even in Texas, there's a lot of veterans who have served and those that even serve a full term and retire. They go to the southern states, they go to the states where, and they don't always go to the Northwest states as often. So let me ask you this question.
They tend to go back to the states where they had served at one point, and that's where I like, with Texas, that's true. There's plenty of bases in Texas, California. There's a ton of bases in California, and so I find a lot of them when they've either PCS'd here at one point or, in Colorado, I will say, we have a ton, especially when they detach and they get out of the military, a lot of these service members are coming back.
Right.
That's why I've been here, 22 years. I love Colorado. So
it is beautiful out there. Let me ask you this one. So Vetted VA is known for holding its professionals, yourself, to a very high standard of education, experience, and service standards. What does being a pro at Vetted VA really mean to you? And I'm asking this question to you specifically because I watch you. I know you do 75 hard. You do those intermittently. You do. I love your journeys. You're never shy about them. You've got an ice bath. You've upgraded. Like you're into those things, and you hold yourself to a high standard of account. So, like to you, what does being a pro or professional at Vetted VA mean, and how's it changed the way you approach the mortgage lending?
Oh, um, man, it's I don't know if we call it a title or, but it just holds us to a higher standard.
Hmm.
And I think it's the other members, not just the members of the community, but the professionals that are in our community. Um, you know, this is I tell people all the time, like, yeah, this loan, you can be the same, you could both be E8s with the same position, same everything about you. And your loan is not going to be the same. Right.
Yeah.
I've done over 1,000 loans and I can't go, oh, that one was exactly like that one. And the one thing I love about our community is specifically with Vetted VA and being a pro in Vetted VA is it just keeps me, I really do believe it keeps me to a higher standard. I have to be constantly upping my game, and I'm surrounded by professionals who are doing the same thing because we're always running into scenarios. I wish sometimes, the members could get kind of a glimpse into our group chat, right? That's going on
Right.
constantly because I usually take like my Saturday mornings and just go and try and catch up
Yep.
on everything that's gone down, because it's just nonstop scenario after scenario. Like, hey guys, I got this, and
Yeah.
it's awesome because I think there's over or close to 100 pros. Are we? I know
Oh,
we
about
kind of.
120.
I know. Okay, I know we recently just had a little bit of a purge, but yeah, over 100 people that are all around the country that are
Yep.
constantly like, I mean, it's just nonstop. Every day, I think there's probably a scenario that's put in there that I'm like, oh, I've never come across that before. Um, and that's the way it's been since I started doing this. Right. I started in 2004, like a lot of other people.
Yep.
I got out in 2008, and then got back in 2012. And
Yep.
it's, of all the loans that I've done, like I said, there's just that no two are alike. Even the
Yeah.
same client that comes back later, that there's another
Right.
loan, right? Their life has changed. Hey, this person was, an employee and they were working for somebody. And then 5 years later, they come back like, hey, let's buy a house. And they just assume, like, I qualified before, I'm qualified again. Great.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's new? Well, I just started a new company. Oh, okay.
You're
Well,
like,
here we
yeah.
go. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just that professional standard. I mean, the test, and I think every person I've spoken to, whether they're a lowly high school dropout like myself, or if they are someone with a master's degree, every professional I've spoken to that took the test for Vetted VA, and not just the test that we had to originally take, but also the continued
Mhm.
education that's constantly being put out, has all said it was one of the toughest tests that they've ever had to take.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of that. I think that is kind of sets that standard of.
We actually we actually set up a challenge test. If anybody's interested and they want to get that, you just email us at info@vetedva.com because we set up a challenge test. People were just like, it's not that bad. I'm like, well, no, it's not that bad. It's an open book test. It just will challenge you. So if you want to swing at that. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you this one. You mentioned, 1,000 loans. Not everyone's the same. 100% agree with that. Even when people look on paper to be the same, the house is different, the location's different, it's a different time in lending.
Mm.
The lender that's the best option for them has a little different overlay. You're always dealing with change. But what is a real world story? Give me, without naming names, is there a particular client story that just stuck with you? Just something that kind of keeps you going, you lean back on. One, you learned something amazing, or it's a point of pride, or even a point of disgrace with yourself. You're like, I will never make that mistake again. Like some of those are the best trainers. Like, what's a story you could share?
Well, the worst day of my professional career happened. I think it was 2014.
Hmm.
I had a client that had come to me. Um, had a great job, worked for the same company for like 3 years, um, did his income calculation, and started shopping. Right. Well, in 2014, like, the market was a little different. People that were
Yeah.
shopping
Yeah.
for homes were shopping for months. Typically,
Yeah.
it wasn't the process. I mean, it's crazy right now. I feel like in the last 5 years, most clients I deal with for maybe 45 to 60 days. That's a long time now.
Yeah. Yeah.
In 2014, it was, months. I'd have clients for 3, 4 months before we found that house or before they got into what they wanted to get into. Anyway, so did his income calculation, and we were good. We're get out there and start shopping. Well, in the middle of that process, he got a promotion. He went from an hourly employee to a salaried employee, and
Okay.
he's going to make more money. He's going to get bonus off his team. He's going to get, the income was going to be higher. Well, that's in our world. That's not how it always works, right? We have to
Right.
look at that continuation of income and how he was getting paid. And long story short, I had him calculated about $120,000 a year. However, his new position was going to be potentially $200,000 a year. However, he went from being an hourly employee that got a ton of overtime to being a salaried employee, and his income dropped from 120 to 80,000 was his base, with potential quarterly bonuses of 30. And I missed it. And they got under contract. They were ready to go. And at the time, I was working for a large retail lender that I had recently gotten into a bit of a dust up with. Some of the people in our industry may remember. someone was going to come for my license. Anyway, I was working at that company at that time, and we were kind of detached from our underwriting team and whatnot. Anyway, 2.5 weeks, we ordered the appraisal inspection. They've gone through everything. These clients were ready to move, and they had already sold their previous property. So they had a property, they sold it, they had moved in temporarily with their parents. So that they could save some money, pay us. Anyway, so 3 weeks into it, I had to tell them that they were not qualified for that particular house. And not only were they not qualified for the house, but their qualification was actually off by about $250,000 because of that new income. And so it was like the toughest call I ever had to make. The client was way more gracious than I deserved. Probably one of the most unbelievable scenarios I've ever, they thanked me for my time. They immediately understood the mistake that was made, but that's a huge mistake. And that's it kind of brought me down to earth of the reality of the seriousness of what it is that we do. We're talking about someone's home and living situation. And that client, because of, they sold their house based on my pre-approval.
Right.
And they were like going to move in with their folks for a few weeks, maybe a month or two. Yeah. And they ended up having to stay there for about a year before they were able to get into the home and purchase. And they did not use me for that purchase, which I totally understood.
Right.
But yeah, that it just kind of, it's that reminder for all of us of like how important and what a lot of people, that little mistake that you make at the beginning, you don't do your due diligence and you don't continue to checks and balances and have a different set of eyes. And I put checks and balances in place now that prevent any of that from happening. I've been doing income calculations for a very long time. And I still to this day have a second set of eyes on every calculation that I do. And it's because of that transaction where I cost them $8,000 in earnest money. I cost them living with their parents. And this is a family. Yeah. They had children.
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh about it. It's just one of those, it was,
well, I mean,
tough lesson.
You're 11 years past, but it's still one that it just kind of haunts you and sticks with you because it's sometimes, and those are I'm going to say the best stories. Like, I want to hear it again. That was so good. But it's the best story that actually changes our protocol. Like you said, it was that aha moment. We're dealing with lives. We're not dealing with wants or desires. And you maybe not to belittle, but sometimes you sell a car, people walk in, they're like, I want this car. Now they're driving a car that may work really well. but now they want something better. Okay. Um, I want the newer iPhone, even though my iPhone works just fine, or I want but when you get with housing, a lot of times you're dealing with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety and soundness, a roof over your head. This is imperative that we get it right. I'm thinking about the VA loan and kind of where we're going with it. Since you're on the front line, you've had a lot of experience in VA lending. What do you see as one of the biggest upcoming challenges or opportunities for veterans that are looking to buy a home in today's market and utilize their VA benefit?
I mean, the challenge right now is the opportunity. It's tough to. Rates are higher than where they've been in the last several years.
Yeah.
Right? There's no. I was never a fan of the marketing behind statements like "date the rate, marry the house," or any of that other. I thought was just complete nonsense. No, it's rates are higher. Affordability is lower. It's harder to get that house that they want. I mean, I've had in the last 2.5 years, I can't even count the number of clients that have called me and said, "Hey, we're ready to move. We're ready to make that jump. Let's go." And I have that kind of like, I don't want to be a dream crusher, but at the same time, it's like, all right, I'm going to put those numbers together for you, and then we're going to figure out how to make you love the current house you're in even more, because that's kind of, I mean, it really has been. I mean, these numbers aren't small, right? I mean, I don't know how many clients. I know you have plenty. I have a ton, over a few hundred clients that have rates in the very low twos.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
And today, let me just look at MBS Live over here that I have on my other screen, and the VA, the national average it has is at 6.5.
Oh, okay.
So 3x,
exactly.
3x,
Yep, 3x
that interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, it is right. And you can always say we always have the ability to refinance later on down the road. Most of the experts, analysts are saying that, hey, we're at the top. We're going to see rates coming down soon, although they've been saying that for 18 to 24 months now.
Yes.
But affordability has been the tough part. But the opportunity in that for a lot of my clients is those clients in 2000, or 2020 and 2019, end of 2019, 2020, 2021, some of them were getting into homes for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over the asking price. Right?
That's right.
Now, in hindsight, that turned out to be a great investment because of the appreciation of those properties, and so they're fine. They're doing great, but they had to make those offers. They were competing. The stress levels of that market was insane. It was super high. Right now, my clients that are going out, they're going to showings. They're the only person there. They're not waiting in line to get into a house. So there's not as much competition. In the last year, we were actually, my wife and I, my wife is my contract processor. And so we were just talking about how many of our clients have paid for their closing costs in the last 18 months, and specifically looking at 2024. And one. We had one client that had to pay their closing costs. So when that competition is gone, it's now a buyer's market. Rates may be higher, but if you look at that cash that's saved, and I'm talking about cash, right? Cash out of pocket that's being saved.
Exactly.
That's huge. And especially, price of everything is up right now. So if you can save, here in Colorado, right, we got our average loan amount right now is in the 500s. So we're talking about possibly $10,000 that we're getting in those concessions that's covering the closing costs for our clients. So that's kind of that positive of this market. Less competition. Yeah, rates are higher, so your payment's going to be higher. But if you can afford it and if it makes sense, I think it's always going to be better. Than rates.
It's the difference of investing in yourself versus investing in somebody else. And I think that what you just pointed out, let's say it my way, which is when rates were low, prices were just jumping extraneously. No, that's the wrong word. Exponentially. That's what I'm looking for. Like when rates were low, like you would literally look at a house, and if you didn't get under contract, you looked at it again in 2 weeks if it was still there, and the price had gone up. Prices were rising rapidly, and so there was that. It was a seller's market because the sellers didn't have to negotiate. They said, "Oh, you want my house? Here's the price." Oh, you want my house now? Well, you better come in with more money because I just got another offer.
We have
I sold my
42
house in
other
21.
offers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I sold my house in 21, and I was like, we didn't get an offer the first week, and I called my realtor. I was like, "What's wrong with you?" No, I didn't actually say it that way, but that's what I was thinking. She was super sweet. Happened to be that I listed it on Father's Day weekend, and a bunch of graduations happened that weekend for our area, and I was like, "Oh, okay, it makes more sense." People were actually celebrating their seniors and not coming in and hanging out at houses. Guess what? The next week I had 5 offers.
Right.
So it was like, oh, now I love what your point. Look, you pay for the market one way or another, either a high price value at a low interest rate, or the prices are negotiable and a higher interest rate. You got to find the affordability factor. To the point of the VA loan, the VA loan doesn't really care about debt to income ratio. They care about residuals.
Hmm.
So a lot of times a couple putting their head together going like, we're going to get this done. As long as the residual income is calculating out well, sure, they might be looking at 65% back end DTI or higher, but they can still get approved on the VA loan
Hmm.
because the VA understands like we're trying to get veterans and those that have earned this eligibility into a home, not an investment property, into a
Yeah.
place to live. And so I love that for our VA eligible consumers. Let me ask you this one. For loan officers who want to truly excel, and you've been talking about doing this for a long time, you had a little break there, like most of us did, myself included. What's your best piece of advice for serving more veterans, for excelling in a service to the veteran community? What separates the good from the great in this business?
It's those that are surrounding themselves with other pros at a higher level, right? Like I've always prided myself, like one of my just missions is always to be the lowest common denominator in the room. Right? I
Mm.
want to be the guy
Hmm.
bringing down the average, not the other way around. Um,
Right.
and honestly, joining these communities, right? There's a couple other ones that are out there, but Vetted VA, I mean, it's the
Hmm.
one that to me I think has the highest barrier of entry
Yeah.
because of that test, because of the education that's required. It's tougher than any of the, like I said, any of the other things, but you got to constantly be educating yourself. You got to constantly be surrounded by other people doing that same business. Cause like I said, I'm constantly learning about just these awesome, these speed bumps that someone else had to hit, this big roadblock that somebody else came up against, and then how
Yeah.
they got over that. And that just
Yep.
constantly makes me look like I just know even more because something comes my way, I see it. I don't have to rely on just my own personal experience of the loans that I've done. I get to rely on the experience of my community, right? And that's huge.
Yep.
That you can't, you cannot replace that. There's not any amount of education or school or anything that you can do that replaces the fact that I've got 70 something other loan originators out there doing business, right? And so they're actively working in this market. Because that's the other thing is we make fun of it. We see it all the time, right? You always got that one agent that's like, I've been doing this for 25 years. And I'm like, yeah, the same time that you got your last headshot, right? It doesn't matter. Like I talk about when I started, but honestly, when I started
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's the number
Yep.
of loans that I've done that matters. It's, we've got
Yep.
a few people that are in vetted VA that have been doing this way less than I have, but
Hmm.
they are, I mean, just hustlers. These guys are out there just doing a ton of business. And it's that amount of business that they've done that puts them at a higher level than I hold people that have been doing it 20 years like myself. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's how many you've been doing. How recent was your last transaction, right? Because it's like there's people out there. What a lot of the public doesn't understand is that it's 15% of the originators are doing 85% of the business,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And in real
The
estate,
Pareto principle holds out against everything. The 80/20 rule holds every single time. And
and
having
real
people
estate
that
is
are
even tougher.
willing to learn regularly, that's the key.
No. So I mean, that's the advice. I've had people call me and from other industries and from other places and ask about getting into lending right now. And
Yeah.
the first thing I tell everybody is, well, before you just get into lending, get a job in the industry. Before you become an
Yeah.
originator, get a job in the industry. Just do something. I think the barrier of entry into our industry is a little bit light. I think there should be a little bit more checks and balances because the toughest part is you take the 20 hours, you take the test, you pass, and now you're a loan originator, and the public has no idea. There's no distinction. because those same people can put senior loan originator or senior loan officer on their business card. Nobody stops them from doing that. And so to those, I say, like, make sure you're working with somebody or in a community that you can constantly be bouncing your scenarios off of, right? I mean, it's like I've got Vetted VA. I've got a number of different text threads and instant messaging threads and all these different groups. I'm nonstop reaching out. And it's okay to second guess yourself. I think it's the error on the side of caution, and second guess yourself as much as you possibly can, right? That trust but verify, it's not just a motto, it's the way that you have to be. So
it's got to be your creed for your personal push. Well,
100%. I still have the 26-7 is right now open right on my screen right here. I am non
Control F or Command F. It's like, I'm looking for this. Let me get into it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope you've appreciated this look into Nathan Einkorn and who he is, how he leads. I know I always appreciate talking with you, Nate. Thank you so much for taking time on this one. People can find you on Facebook. Your contact information is going to be in the show notes. If you're in the Vetted VA group, you'll see him engage there, answer questions, and talk. If you're in the pros group, you'll see him in there as well, but you'll find him online everywhere. And thank you again, Mr. Einkorn. Appreciate it. I know you've got some chili to make with beans and that, whatever you call chili. That is a common thing. If you really want to watch something funny, just watch between Christopher Griffith and Nathan Einkorn, the disagreement on what chili is and if it has beans or not. That is an ongoing joke now for like 3 years, and it starts wars about every quarter. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you again for taking time. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you listening into the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. If you've got questions, please feel free to email us, info@vettedva.com. Check out our website, vettedva.com. Find Nate's information there in Colorado and other states. With that, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at Vetted VA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the Vetted VA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join Vetted VA on Facebook or Vetted VA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at vettedva.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.